You're gonna make it, Carolyn.
Oh God, I'm bloody well hope so. I'm going for my COVID test tomorrow, and I might go to the health food store with 2 masks on to get some more drugs.
Herbs.
Good drugs. Yeah, herbal drugs.
All right. Are we back live again, Joe? Okay. We're just waiting for Councilor Vomaca to come back. There she is. I'm sure Jazz and Ronnie are listening behind the scenes. All right. We can move on down to reports then. Council and committee reports. The first report is up for the Finance and Administration meeting held September 7th, 2021. Councilor McGonigal.
Thank you, Mayor Day. I would like to move the minutes of the Finance Administration meeting held electronically at Lake Cowichan as per Ministerial Order M192. Was held Tuesday, September 7th, 2021, with the following recommendations. That the committee recommend approval of the Lake Cowichan Fire Department incident report in the amount of $14,620.21 for July 2021. Also, that the committee recommend that council not consider provision of permissive tax exemption for the property located at 20 South Shore Road. That the committee recommend that Ms. Bev Litster be appointed to the Advisory Planning Commission for the balance of the term ending on December 31st, 2022. And with those, I will move those minutes.
It's my turn for sure. It's becoming chronic. All right, so all those in favor and opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have the minutes of the Public Works and Environmental Services Committee held September 21st, 2021. Councilor Vomaca.
Thank you. I'd like to move the minutes of the Public Works and Environmental Services Committee meeting held electronically at Lake Cowichan, BC, as per Ministerial Order M192 on Tuesday, September the 21st, 2021, with one recommendation, and that is the virtual attendance of the Island Wood Industries Forum on October the 12th, 2021 by any member of council.
Moved by Councilor Vomaca, seconded by Councilor Sandhu. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, the motion carried. Thank you very much. Next to the minutes of the Parks, Recreation and Culture Committee meeting held on September 21st, 2021. That's Councilor Austin.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move the minutes of the Parks, Recreation and Culture Committee held electronically at Lake Cowichan as per Ministerial Order M192 on Tuesday, September 21st, 2021, with the following recommendation: that the committee recommend its support for the Cowichan Valley Bluegrass Festival.
Thank you very much. And seconded by Councilor Sandhu. Any discussion? All those in favor and opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. Next is a Strategic Planning Committee meeting held September 7th, 2021. And Councilor Austin, if I could bother you again, I believe there's one recommendation.
Okay. Move the minutes of the Strategic Planning Committee from Tuesday, September 7th, 2021, that the committee recommend that the Moving On Up Cowichan Lake Poverty Reduction Strategy Report be accepted. And there's a few here. That the committee recommended members of council attend the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Sustainable Committee Conference to be held virtually October 19th to 2021. Mayor Day, that's the last one. Just the two.
Okay. Thank you. Any discussion? Seconded by, sorry. Counselor Sandhu, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion carried. Thank you very much. Cowichan Lake Recreation Commission, there was no meeting. That'll be later in October. There was supposed to be a special meeting called, but that hasn't happened yet. So moving along to Vancouver Island Regional Library, Councillor Vomaka.
Yeah, thank you. We did have a Zoom meeting on Saturday. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the whole 3 hours. But let's see, we passed the budget with a 3.8% total levy increase, which is basically cost of living. Any further branch builds are being put on hold because of rising construction cost. Those that were already put out to tender, they will continue to be either built or renovated. Our Lake Cowichan branch here was slated for flooring to be renovated, and that's to still proceed. There was much discussion brought forward by one board member, and was the discussion was about a lot of the leased buildings, and they wanted a breakdown of what the leased buildings cost versus ones that, you know, may already be Virl owned. And the concern was leased buildings in some of the smaller communities, that the leases were probably top heavy. Most of the trustees with the discussion, though, all agreed, though, that it pits branches against each other, because all these smaller communities like Was and Tassis, they may not have the population built our basis, but Virl was always built on everybody having use to a library location, no matter the size. So that was good to hear. So there was also the opportunity, and I don't know whether my alternate got a email or not, an invite for a Welcome to Four Seasons of Reconciliation course. And so it is a 3-hour course that we can do online at our leisure. And so hopefully Councillor Austin received that and may register. Thank you. And also a letter went from Virl to the Honorable Josie Osborne, MLA, in anticipation of the forthcoming proclamation of Library Month. We extend greetings and an invitation to join us to mark the occasion. We appreciate that the House is in session throughout October, so at your convenience, we would be pleased to host you at any of our 40 locations or meet you at a location of your choice. And so the annual report is on the website if anybody wishes to further see it. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Vomaka. So we can move along to the Advisory Planning Commission report. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was unwell for that, but I see our town planner here. He may give you an idea of what was discussed on, or Joseph, whichever one.
Yeah, I can start the process,
Okay,
and then the consulting planner can jump in. There were 3 items that were on the agenda last week, and the one was the presentation by the consulting planner on the roles and responsibilities of an APC. He discussed the planning and land use management sections of the Local Government Act, dealt with the response that did with then he went on to the public hearing process, the official community plans, the reasons for it. Then he talked about the affordable housing. And then we also covered development permits and the reasons for those, and development variance permits, and covered subdivision servicing requirements.
wow.
I think that was the gist of it. It took a few minutes. The members were quite curious. Most of them probably already knew what was going on, but it was kind of a refresher course put on by the consulting planner. Do you want to jump in there, Mr. Van Heeman?
Mr. Van Heemer?
Yes. Yes. Can you hear me? Yes. Yeah, there we go. We had a new member, so that's one of the reasons why we provided a refresher. We also spent some time updating the members of new developments in process. This is something that they don't get to see or review, like they don't see development permits or have a chance to comment on them, nor subdivisions or rezonings. In fact, their role was earlier in the process because they've played a big role, as I reminded them, in actually providing input for updating our bylaws, like the zoning bylaw, the official community plan, and the subdivision bylaw. So they understand that, but we felt it was important for them to understand the positive impact of the development proposals that would come through following the update to those bylaws and what those would look like. We also spend a little bit of time just covering off one of the reasons why this zoning bylaw update that they've been following keenly, because they provided so much input early, as well as the LCP, which is the foundation for it, why that took 18 months or so since they were working on it. And one of the reasons is we've been very busy with many zoning bylaw applications or rezonings, and we covered some of that off with them as well. So they understood what was happening. So the timing is very good for the zoning bylaw to be considered. And finally, we spent some time talking about the subdivision works and services bylaw. I think maybe 5-6 years ago, they provided a lot of input on the current version of the subdivision bylaw. We're back at it again, and I covered off some of the items that we need to review with the group. And that's really over the next number of months. That's going to be their work program, is reviewing the subdivision bylaw and providing some modernization. There's a number of things that have been identified that could work better. And so that's something that we'll be working on. And that's what we discussed. That's the end of my report on
Thank
that.
you, Mr. Van Heemer. Mr. Fernandez?
Yeah, just, I think this is another topic that he covered was the issue of roads, lot sizes, and the different kind of roads that can be constructed. You presented layouts that would be suitable for the town, and also dealt with the parking issue on streets. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I'll say one thing. Thank you, Joe. Just to go a little deeper on this, yes, those are some of the topics that we do need to visit. We have had an ongoing issue in different respects, depending on the specific context, where the subdivision is being reviewed and developed, on everything from, how wide the streets are, to sidewalks on both sides, to the nature of infrastructure, like the fact that the storm drains, you all know the story about what happened in Point Ideal. And part of the issue is lack of clarity in the drawings and illustrations, which we shared. We shared a model from Langford. And I would personally very much like to see the town adopt very specific standards on our streets. So the guessing game, so we don't have to renegotiate everything every time. Yes, we do have standards, but I think perhaps the civil engineers and the applicants tend to take a lot of liberties with them. It's like they don't really take them seriously. So and we reflected a little bit of that back to the Advisory Planning Commission, that was one of the challenges we faced. And I encourage them to look at the street standards with an eye for aesthetics as well, because there's tree planting. Streets are one of the most important ways in which we actually experience our communities when we walk around and drive around. So it's actually quite important. And I think hopefully that will engage them. I think there's a sense from them that they've spent a bit of time in, well, kind of in a lull where they haven't been personally hands-on with some really interesting projects. And I also encourage them, sorry, I'm going on for an extra minute or two here, but I encourage them and I reminded them that they've played a major role in their own initiatives over the years with the signage that we've seen in the town, you know, the entry signs, the sign by the town square. And there's been a number of other elements, the Columbarium Park. They've played a major role and some of it's been their initiative. And I reminded them that that can happen in the future. So I encourage them, you know, bring ideas to the table. Don't just wait for something to show up on the agenda. So there, I think I've said enough. I think I've covered that off there.
Oh, we should have you for a whole meeting.
Like
Good to
that.
have it.
Thank you very much, James. It's always interesting to listen to a planner's point of view on stuff, so no problem. So I'm scared to ask if there's any questions about that report. But maybe we can set aside some time for James to be at a sustainable planning meeting at one time and have him give us a little rundown on some things that
Yeah.
are on his mind for the future. Okay, so thank you very much for that, Joe and James. So we'll now go to the Community Forest Co-op, Councillor McGonigal.
Nothing to report on that as of yet. I think there will be an executive meeting coming up shortly, and I will report at next council meeting on what transpires.
Okay, don't turn your microphone off because other reports, we have the Cowichan Valley Regional District Board meeting, Councillor McGonigal.
And you'll bear with me, I'm going to go between 2 or 3 screens as you were previously. So first of all, Regional Services Committee on September 22nd. There were 2 delegations at that meeting. Cindy Lise, who you all probably know as the Community Health Network update. Also with Denise Williams, who is the co-chair of that, on the activities of the Hour of Cowichan for the past year. That was a very interesting presentation. And I think some people watched online, didn't they? Gretchen Hartley was also there from the Cowichan Hospice on the report on hospice care throughout the region on the yearly update. Very, very good report. Also from the Economic Development Division was the reapplication for the municipal and regional district tax renewal application. That tax is on hotel tax, the 2% that is set aside for tourism. There was some discussion whether or not some of that can be allocated towards affordable housing. That has been an option given through the province on that taxation avenue through hotel tax to accommodate that portion. There was considerable discussion whether or not that should transpire, given that the focus of that hotel tax is for tourism. There was quite a bit of discussion on that. And that was that one. If you'll bear with me, I'll get into the board meeting. Give it a chance to reboot. At the board meeting, there was a delegation from the Nanaimo Airport Authority. And you may know this name, David Vanna, on the update of the airport operations and their capital plans in the next few years. They have had a very difficult year with COVID, but they have done some major capital projects on the runway and the apron areas to accommodate some larger planes in the future for the Sunbelt, perhaps moving forward. Also from Community Services, I'll get into that one. There were some presentations and appointments to the Gulf Islands. Actually, one of the recommendations came from Director Smith on trying to exclude the Gulf Islands from the regional recreation data collection. As you know, there will be a referendum coming forward on regional recreation at the next election. And her intent was to try to remove the Gulf Islands, Thetis Island, etc., from the data collection on that. That was turned down as we thought that would skew the process. and the data collection for those 9 identified operations that will reside within regional recreation. You will have an opportunity to have a look at that in the future. There will be public meetings afforded for that referendum coming up. Also some grant and aids from Electoral Area Services report and their information. The majority of those are bylaws from electoral areas, and municipal directors are not included in land use planning. Community Services Committee, there was some recommendations there. Recommended that there be a 7-month extension for Duncan Gymnastics Club on their use agreement, and also a 6-month extension to the license of occupation with Island Health for vaccination clinic at Community Services be approved. And from there, some sewer system bylaws, et cetera, that reside within electoral area districts, et cetera. Malhat fire protection areas being approved. Other than that, that's my report.
Thank you very much. Sounds like a fair amount of business to me. So next we can move on to, Councillor Sandhu has a question for us.
Well, I was just going to ask, how long was your meeting last Wednesday, Councillor McGonigal?
Started at 9:30 a.m. and it concluded at 8:30 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a short one. No, but there was considerable business in camera, which I cannot discuss, and considerable discussion on the regional recreation. As you probably know, that has been a contentious issue for 35 years, at least. All my time on the board, this is probably the furthest we have ever come on clarification on board approval of moving forward without excluding different areas, which was one of the topics that did come forward that was not endorsed. So I think it's important to give the public the opportunity to move forward whether or not. You'll note in an earlier report that approximately 35% of the use of the Cowichan Lake Recreation Facility is from North Cowichan residents and out of town residents. So with the inclusion of the user pay, that would afford some taxation from those bases to go towards the operational costs of Cowichan Lake Recreation. Not the capital costs, those would be borne by the residents where that facility resides. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I did miss one thing. Under transit, the interregional transit between Nanaimo Regional District and the Cowichan Valley Regional District was put forward, and the rates for that on a connection between Cowichan Valley and Nanaimo, so for services to the airport and beyond, was approved in the coming transit plan. So that'll be interesting to see that come forward in the transit operation hours and the usage. You will note that the commuter service to Victoria is a very well-used service and is looking at expansion numbers. They're thinking similar numbers for the Nanaimo portion to include that in considerable uptick.
That'll be great news for VIU students in the future, that's for sure. All right, any more questions or comments to Councillor McGonigal? Once again, thank you very much, and thank you for those long shifts too. Oh, did I mention budget times are coming up soon too?
And now that you mention that, that just happens to reside within the committee that I chair.
Yeah.
I'm going to give some of the duties to my alternate, to Director Wilson, and let him try to herd cats for a little bit.
Oh, well played. Thank you. Okay, next we can go to the Community Outreach Team Committee. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was doing a UBCM conference Zoom at the time, and I missed this first one there's quite a lot of new staff down there. So I will report on next month when it comes.
All right, thank you very much. And our couch and Councillor Sandu.
Thank you. We had a meeting on September 23rd. There was discussion on kids sport is returning this fall. The organization provides grants up to $500 per child. And there is a Aging Well Seniors Expo 2021 on November 5th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Island Savings Center Multipurpose Hall. And this is connecting seniors and families with resources for healthy, active, and social living. So there'll be informative booths, demonstrations. There'll be a flu shot clinic also. And so as long as there's enough supplies for our seniors to be vaccinated or to get their flu shot. There's also a Health Connect Registry Cowichan, and this is building a new way to connect you to a physician or a nurse practitioner. It's called Health Connect Registry, and it's a registry online tool, adds you to a local wait list for a provider. So there's many people, families without family doctors. So this really will be amazing with the nurse practitioners. And I know we do have one in Lake Cowichan. So a few days a week at the health unit. So it's a good way to connect. So, and our next meeting is November 4th.
All right, any questions for Councillor Sandu? Okay, thank you very much for that. And now to the Couch and Watershed Board.
Thank you.
And
So
again.
yesterday we held our meeting and we discussed the Weir update. The technical work is completed to bring the Weir to shovel-ready stage. The shoreline assessment work to clearly define upstream impacts well underway and will be completed in March 2022. The next big step is the ID license holder and owner. This is a significant stumbling block right now in this Weir project. Cowichan Tribes received a grant to partially use to retain a facilitator to lead the process to find a licensee holder and owner. The company is Compass Resource Management. They were retained to lead these discussions. On September 17th, there was a kickoff meeting with the senior working group. It's a group of 5 organizations consisting of Cowichan Tribes, the province of BC, CVRD, Cowichan Watershed Board, and Paper Excellence, Crofton Catalyst. This group is responsible for making significant decisions as it works through issues and options. The group is up to 10 compromising senior managers from each of the parties, and they will meet 6 times over the process. And another group put together, it's called Project and Technical Team. It's a smaller group of facilitators, contractors, and staff that will meet bi-weekly or as needed. This group is responsible for completing all legwork to frame options for the senior working group, including research, analysis, decision support, coordinating meetings, agenda development, delivering briefings, and facilitation. So our next meeting is October 25th.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Councillor Sandu? Councillor McGonigal.
Just through you, if I may, I think the stumbling block right from the onset of the discussion of raising the Weir has been the license holder and liabilities to property owners. It's interesting to see that neither one of those have come to fruition in probably the 9 years since the early discussions of this. It'll be interesting to see who comes forward as the license holder and how that liability issue is dealt with once the lake levels have been established through the LiDAR that they're currently doing. I think that's another important piece of work to understand the impacts of raising the Weir on how many actual properties will be affected. We've heard, as in a similar discussion earlier, anecdotal numbers, but I think with the LiDAR, you will get a true and accurate reading of the properties and what will be impacted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, they're creating almost like a booklet of each individual property, and just in anticipation of any potential legal actions and stuff in the future. So a lot of homework has gone into satisfying the curiosity of those folks. So covering liability issues. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. I think if you go on the Couch and Lake Weir website, you can test out that model and see how it works.
And just to follow up, I think that's been the stumbling block from the onset as to the authority, the legislative authority, the license holder, and the liability issues that have led to such a complex process to get to where it is now, even with the engineered design and not even put out to tender, because those other issues are still in the background. Had they been realized earlier, perhaps it could have already been implemented and the structure could have been tendered by now. But without that, there is no need to move forward with the tendering until that license holder is there, the liability and the authority.
Yeah, thank you very much. Anybody else for Councillor Sandu? Okay, we move along to staff reports then, and we'll go to the CAO for the 2022 Fire Smart Community Funding. And there's a piece of information here with a recommendation.
Yeah, if I may speak to that. We've been fairly successful in terms of getting those grants under the Community Resilience Fund. And so far, we've taken advantage of these streams, the funding streams that have been made available under UBCM. And I've got the motion, the recommendation here below, but you may want to tweak it a little bit because I think I may have just miswritten some stuff here. So I'll read it again. The resolution should read that council approve the making of a grant application through the Community Resilience Program under the 2022 Community Funding and Support Stream through UBCM for an amount of up to $150,000. And that it further provides assurance that it would support all the proposed activities under the plan and would undertake the overall proper fiscal management of the grant. So that's the change I'm suggesting.
Sounds good. I saw Councillor McGonigal's hand go up. You're moving that, sir? All right, seconded by Councillor Sandu. Yep. Any questions for the CEO, Councillor McGonigal?
Just a follow up to what Joseph had said earlier. I've been receiving correspondence asking how Lake Cowichan has been so successful in receiving these grants and who implements the working of the Fire Smart program, etc. As Lake Cowichan is deemed to be a leader in Fire Smart prevention, Fire Smart programs, and the continued communities that have engaged in the Fire Smart program. So I would be excited if this continues on as it has in the past. I think Steve has done a wonderful job in incorporating this into the fire department program, and with the help of the Fire Smart members that go around the neighborhoods. I know they visited me for a follow-up assessment, and I was left with some homework, which I haven't done yet, but I'm sure my wife will get me on that quite shortly. But just to recognize the Fire Smart communities throughout Lake Cowichan is probably one of the best in the province, I would think. And looking at the impacts of interfaces that we saw through this past fire season, I think it's more important than ever that we continue this program.
Couldn't agree more on your last statement for sure. All right, anybody else? Okay, it's been moved and seconded, so all those in favor and opposed? None, the motion's carried. Thank you. Next, we go to the staff report, the consulting planner regarding the summary of the zoning bylaw update. Mr. Van Hemert.
Okay. We had an excellent introduction today on affordable housing in the presentation from the Couch and Housing Association. And I'm going to talk about what this zoning bylaw is going to do in that regard. It's actually very good timing. And I don't need to say anything more. My introductory comments that I have already been made by Mayor Bob Day and our CAO, Joe Fernandez, in terms of the overall scope of this bylaw and what it's doing and what it's accomplishing. I'd like to dive in on a few key points that are highlighted in this report. And I'll just embellish a little bit as needed to help illustrate. But I do like to talk about housing, and it's not only affordable housing which is addressed in this bylaw, and I'll identify a few ways in which it does that, but it also addresses what I call the missing middle. And in our community of Lake Cowichan, and it's true for many communities, the missing middle represents housing for people, perhaps first-time home buyers, single people, people with lower income. And this includes duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, rental, and a range, and not necessarily affordable rental that's subsidized, but just a place for people to rent or own on their own within their own means. And that's something that's missing in many communities. So for example, our community has, I think, 80% of our housing stock is single unit dwellings. And then there's some over, I think it's over 80%, as I recall from our official community plan background work. And then the rest is rental, or there are some townhome style developments, but it's quite limited relative to what we see in the Western BC. And so there's a real need for that broader range. And so first, I'll just tackle for a few moments the affordable housing and how it's addressing that. Number one, we have now a component of the zoning bylaw, and you've seen it before in rezonings, and that's when we apply density bonus. So we presume in some of these cases, and again, it depends, we don't presume, we calculate the additional units, and per the Local Government Act and in accordance to it, our official community plan policy speaks very specifically to providing affordable housing. And so we do that through the rezoning process. And already there are 2 that have been accomplished. So that's now a part of our zoning bylaw. And so anticipating the future, we can expect these new units to be built, and they will stay as affordable, ideally in perpetuity, but not necessarily. Some of it is negotiated on a case-by-case basis. But this is a new arena that we haven't previously, except for the last few years, taken advantage of. A second, we do have this, thanks to Councillor McGonigal, was the person who did remind us on a number of occasions we needed the rental-only zone. So we have included that. Now it's included as text, but not on the map, because at this point in time, we wouldn't impose that on a landowner without their acceptance. So how it would occur is either through land the town controls, or through a rezoning process, or voluntarily through some kind of an agreement with the developer who'd like to see perhaps a density bonus or a density variance permit, permit. And anyways, it's in place and it's there ready to be used at the right time. The other, I'll talk about the missing middle, about providing a greater range of housing. And the way this bylaw does it is we've consolidated and rationalized and simplified in some respect all the different residential zones. And I won't go into that a whole lot of detail, but I will point out that it's more elegant. It's easier to understand what they are. We now have a zone for smaller houses, on smaller lots. We've increased the zones where you can have a duplex. And this is an innovative element of the bylaw, which you may not have seen before. But we are allowing, this bylaw, if passed, would allow on corner lots in the urban core, which is much of the area surrounding uptown and downtown, on larger corner lots, a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex. So they have to be sufficiently large, but that's an ideal location for what I would describe as soft infill density. So it's an increase in density that allows for a greater range of housing types. You've seen it. You know what? I would describe this as a reasonable example of what that would look like. The new duplex that is currently under construction on
King George.
what's the name of that?
King George.
King George and Renfrew. Yes. So that's a good example, although that's not taking advantage of this bylaw. It already has that kind of zoning to allow multi-units, but that kind of soft increase in density throughout our existing neighborhoods is an appropriate way to add that missing middle density. So that's something we've added. And the way it's accomplished visually and for the user of the bylaw is we've added consolidated charts, which makes it really easy to follow the bylaw and understand what's allowed. And so you've seen this in the little memo I created. You've seen the permitted principal uses, and so it just includes, rather than separate lists for each zone district, includes it in one simple chart covering all the zone districts in the residential category. Multi-unit has its own because it's more complicated. And I'll just go back and say a few more words about the changes. And this is important. And we've maintained a chart in the new bylaw that shows what the old zone district names were, because we've done some changes. So actually the table 2, which I have on the first page of the memo, shows you how the old suburban zone district, which was called R2, is now called suburban R1. Single family residential is now called urban, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's a simplification. It's more rational in how it follows through. There's at least one zone district which we've eliminated. I think there's a mobile home park type of zone district, which is gone now because we don't have such a thing. And we now have a medium density zone district. But I bring those up, and that basically comes to my conclusion just on the residential component. And I'm hopeful that this allows the zoning bylaw to be a powerful tool for not only implementing OCP policy, but addressing what we see as a region-wide issue in addressing affordable housing, but addressing housing in a really broad way that covers all of the people that live here or want to live here. A few comments on the commercial. We've done some simplification there and how that's all presented on the commercial. We are allowing for greater height under certain conditions in the downtown and uptown areas of the city. City. It's getting late. We have changed some of the setbacks, allowing for the percentage of the setback, especially in the downtown and uptown core, to be closer to the street, essentially mandating that 50% be up to the street. And the reason for that is to reflect the traditional historic character of the town, where we have retail and office right up to the sidewalk. It creates a more inviting, pedestrian-friendly environment and a more attractive community. This was something that came up in the OCP update. The Advisory Planning Commission was really, really keen to make sure that we did this. So this, for new construction that is proposed, this will have some changes in how that looks and feels, and will reflect much of what has already been built and what is already very attractive about our town. Let's see if there's anything else. I think that covers it off pretty much. Yeah, I really wanted to focus on the highlights. There are a number of other small changes, some of which are basically part of the consolidation. The backyard hens are in there, for example. And we've reflected cannabis retail sales and how that's done in the town. And I think we've caught up. We've modernized this, and I'm hopeful that it will be easier to use and understand. And also will really implement what the residents and the leadership of this town would like to see in the future as we continue to grow and continue to change and in the makeup of our population. So I think that pretty much covers up the highlights on the zoning bylaw, which is basically an entirely new bylaw as this was written. And hopefully this is something we can be proud of. And thanks, really big thanks to the Advisory Planning Commission. I really want to say this, and I told it to them as well. They put a lot of work into this. I do want you as counselors to know that they really did some long hours on this over the last 2 years. So there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Van Hemert, and I'm sure council recognizes that and would like you to pass on our thanks, and then perhaps we'll do that in person as soon as we can as well, because a heck of a lot of work went into that. I never thought I'd see it in such a short period of time, so well done. Councilor McGonigal.
And I will echo that as well. I have sat on the APC in the past, and I know how committed those folks are to getting it right. After the implementation of the new OCP, I think it was important to do the proper work on the subdivision bylaw to align with that. And they have ensured that that has taken place. With those focus groups that put in so much work on the OCP, I think it's important that we do that justice as we move forward with the subdivision update. I know it's not on the map, but the R only zoning, the rental only zoning being identified in verbiage is a move forward, and perhaps a negotiating tool for densification, for infill, for not urban sprawl, for instance. When new subdivisions come forward, they can be identified in the subdivision plan as perhaps amenities aside from parks and other entities that would accommodate affordable housing. I know we can be pretty creative when we want to look forward to not looking at putting more structure on our infrastructure and putting that to a burden. So thanks to the APC for all the work, and yourself as well, Mr. Van Hemert.
All right. Anybody else? Questions or comments to the report? Okay. Thank you once again, Mr. Van Hemert. And we can move on now to bylaws. And first bylaw is the Town of Lake Cowichan zoning amendment bylaw number 1055, 2021, may be read a third time. Mr. Fernandez.
Yeah, just a correction. It should, the amendment portion should be deleted. It shouldn't say amendment on both.
Okay.
A and B, it just should say Town of Lake Cowichan bylaw number, zoning bylaw number 1055.
Do we know?
Okay. And this was, as you've heard from the consulting planner, he spoke highly of this bylaw, and this was the subject of an earlier public hearing, and there was no public input on it, so it's here for third reading.
Thank you. Moved by Councilor McGonigal, third reading, seconded by Councilor Austin. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next, we have the Town of Lake Cowichan zoning bylaw number 1055, 2021. It may be reconsidered and adopted. Mr. Fernandez, any further comment?
No, that's it. You've
All
done it.
right. Same bylaw we just gave third reading to, now to be reconsidered and adopted. Moved by Councilor Austin, seconded by Councilor McGonigal. Any further comment? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Very good. Very good. Okay, so now we can move on to new business and the process for establishing remuneration for the next council. That was, I think, brought forward by Councilor McGonigal, and I'll let him introduce it with thoughts.
Thank you very much, Mayor Day. I think it's important as we come towards our last year in this term that we look forward to the people that will sit at this table for the next 4 years. and what remuneration they should be afforded. I would hope that we would take that out of the hands of this body and let it be established by either a consultant or a focus group, as we have done in the past. So I would look that we move forward with a consultant process on establishing remuneration for the next incoming council, and I will make that a motion.
Very good. Second by Councillor Vomack. Any discussion on that? Councillor Austin? Oh, you're just seconding. Oh, Councillor McGonigal?
And again, I think it's very important that we remove it from the elected officials currently sitting here. If and should any of us decide to put our names forward again, we should not be establishing what the pay rate for our next term would be. So we have utilized different processes in the past, and I know Joseph has some good ideas.
Yes, I've seen where groups have done it themselves and they don't get off to a very comfortable start when they take office. So, Mr. Fernandez?
Yeah, I just want some clarity. Are we talking about a consultant or a focus group? Or did you want to just stick with the consultant?
I think a consultant would be appropriate in my view, but if the seconder is okay with that, I would say a consultant.
Seconder's nodding your head. Okay. Any further discussion on that? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? Seeing none, the motion is carried. Thank you very much for bringing that forward, Councilor McGonigal. That's definitely something that needs to be done before the next round of election process. So next up we have, oh, Councilor Austin. Sorry.
I'm gonna have to beg off. I can't stop coughing, so if it's okay, I'm gonna beg off for now.
That's okay. I'm just going to bore you with my mayor's report.
Oh dear, well, I'll be able to read that.
I'll send it to
Thank
you.
Thank you, everybody. See you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Carolyn. Take care of yourself. Okay, so there is a quick mayor's report here, and then we can move on to question period. Mayor's report for September 2021. I'm very thankful that I had the opportunity to attend this year's virtual UBCM convention, where the theme was Obstacles to Opportunities, and that was held from September 13th to 17th. The week started with the Municipal Insurance Association AGM on the Monday afternoon. As always, the highlight for me was attending the workshops. This year, I was able to attend Pathways to Truth and Reconciliation, Ensuring Local Government Financial Resiliency, and that's an actual initiative that's looking to create some more better, consistent funding, something like the gas tax to help keep our budget topped up in areas where we have needs. So I'm looking forward to that as it gets put up to the provincial government to see what their comments are and see if anything gets changed. The other workshop I attended was Housing Prospects, Trends and Key Issues, Global Warming, Lessons from the 2021 BC Heat Wave. And if I find the video on that, I'm going to try and forward it to you all if it comes up on the UBCM website, because it was very interesting to see Dr. Bonnie Henry put that in perspective for us. And last and not least, the Modernizing the Forest Policy in BC. All of these sessions were very relevant to the year that is behind us, as well as what lies ahead. I was also able to attend the entire resolution process, and it was refreshing to acknowledge how much we have in common with many municipalities throughout the province. It is through this process of endorsing individual resolutions at UBCM that delegates, by the UBCM delegates, that can send the stronger message up to the ladder to the provincial government for their consideration. The theme of this year's conference came across very relevant, considering all that has occurred in the past year: the pandemic, wildfires, logging protests, and a severe heat dome that parked upon us. But yet we all work together to prove our resiliency. When things get tough, our communities, like all others, seem to rise to the occasion and turn obstacles like these into an opportunity to work together for a better tomorrow. I know that sounds cliche, but the content of that convention really, solidified those words for me. There is one more obstacle that needs all of our collective attention: So much so that the federal government has set aside a day to attract our thoughts to this topic. The National Day of Truth and Reconciliation is Thursday, September 30th. If you are not familiar with the story of how our First Nations families were treated in the past, I urge you to spend some time getting to know the stories and acknowledging that much pain and suffering has transpired and is still continues today from those memories of the past. It is up to us all to find out the truth, acknowledge the harm done, and move forward with equal respect for our First Nations friends and neighbors. Thank you very much. Okay. I always get quite emotional when that topic comes up. Anyhow, notices of motion, there was none introduced at the beginning of the meeting. Are there any introductions of notice of motion at this point? I'm seeing no hands. That'll pause us to question period, where we'll pause for 3 minutes and allow people to call in or email their questions to 250-749-6681 is the phone number, or general@lakecowichan.ca. Once again, the telephone number is 250-749-6681, or the email address is general@lakecowichan.ca. If there's any members of the public out there that want to email or call in a question, we'll pause for 3 minutes and come back at 8:44. Thank you. Okay, it's 8:44 now. Mr. Fernandez.
but no emails or no telephone calls.
All right. That'll take us to number 13, in camera. And Mr. Fernandez, could you describe the reasons for going in camera tonight?
I can indeed. Section 92 of the community charter requires that before a meeting or part of a meeting is closed to the public, council must state by resolution why the meeting is being closed. And the basis on which the meeting is to be closed falls under the following sections of the community charter. Section 91C, dealing with labor relations or other employee relations. Section 91E on the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements. And Section 91G on issues of law enforcement.
Thank you very much. Motion to go in camera, please. Moved by Councillor Vomaka, seconded by Councillor Sandhu. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion carried. Motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Councillor Vomaka, seconded by Councillor Sandhu. All those in favor? Oh, Mr. Fernandez?
You want to adjourn after the in-camera?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah. Okay. We'll scratch that, but nice hand raising, people. So we will now move in camera, and that requires us to leave this meeting and log in with the other.
Yeah, we'll just, you have to log out and come back in.
See you in a moment.
Okay, good night.